Hey guys, my name is Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. Today I am starting to plant out some of my second summer garden stuff, and I just wanted to take you guys along and show you what I'm doing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is tear out the beans on this trellis behind me and then replant with new beans. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clippers and just start clipping things off the vine. I'm not trying to rip everything up by the roots because I want everything that's in the container that they're in to stay mostly intact. And that's because over the time that it's been out here, it's built up a lot of soil life, the roots have aerated the soil, and I don't want to mess with that. I can just plant right into it without having to mess with the soil. So that's what I'm going to do. So you might wonder why I'm tearing out live plants. So the answer is they're really only barely alive, and they're mostly spent in terms of their growing season. I live in South Carolina, right? So I still have plenty of days until my first frost, which the estimated date right now is sometime in November. So I've got plenty of time to replant these, have another go at growing them with a little bit of a warmer start than they got in the spring, and see if I can't get a second full crop of beans, because to be honest, this first crop was pretty disappointing. I got, I think, a total of like maybe 6 or 7 noodle beans off of this whole trellis, and like 3 cave beans, which is very pitiful for how many plants I had in here. I think I had like 5 or 6 plants per pot. So yeah, planting beans here in the spring did not go as well. Alright, so actually, while I'm sitting here removing all these vines, I think I might have changed my mind about what I'm doing. So I mentioned that I was going to leave this soil undisturbed, and that is what I would do if I was going to plant back into this. But I remembered that a while ago I decided I was going to try planting in ground here, because I feel like my plants were really stunted by being contained in the containers. So I think what I'm going to do is pour out the soil that's in there onto the ground below it, and then add a nice layer of compost on top of that, and then plant into that. Now I'm doing that because the ground here is just straight up red clay, and up on the hill behind my big garden bed, which you can barely see, it's bleached out by the sun behind me, basically a small layer of compost did the trick, and things are growing in that. It's definitely not the healthiest ecosystem I've ever seen, but it's a good start, and if I do this year, then I'll have something to build on next year when I go back to do this again in the spring. So that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, so time to replant. On one side I'm going to do the noodle bean again, and on the other side I'm going to do this blue pole bean. I bought it last year and actually didn't get a chance to plant it, so I want to see how that goes. And no cave beans this time. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to plant those again, just because they were stringy even when picked young, and I don't have the room to grow enough to produce dried beans, so I'm just not going to grow them, and that's okay. So the next much grosser thing that I'm going to do today is tear out a lot of the dead cucumber vines that the squash bugs killed and try replanting. And in the process, I'm going to have to hand squish a lot of squash bugs. I'm going to squish the squash bugs. And I think additionally, I'm probably going to try throwing them into a bucket of water with a little bit of dish soap and see if that won't kill them, because diatomaceous earth, even though it's supposed to be really good for beetles and things like that, seems to have no effect on my squash bugs. And most people who have talked to me about them have said, yeah, you're gonna have to hand squish them. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do it while trying to leave the healthy pumpkin intact while getting rid of all of the dead cucumber that unfortunately I never got cucumbers from, which is why I'm going to try again. So let's get to the squishing of the squash bugs. I want to bring you guys in for a quick close-up. First of all, that is what squash bugs look like. And second of all, that is what their eggs look like. They'll either be on the stem, or sometimes you'll find them near the bottom of the leaf, like about in that area. And you've got to get everything. So I'm rubbing off the eggs and drowning the squash bugs. Ugh, gross. Oh man. So basically what I've been doing is picking off the squash bugs and also cutting off all of the dead leaves from my plants that I'm keeping, mostly because I'm trying to remove habitat for the squash bugs and just kind of double ensure that I'm not missing big sacks of eggs on leaves that the plant doesn't need, that it doesn't need to keep. So all of that is going in a separate bucket that I am then going to basically just go as far away from my garden as possible and dump in the woods back behind where I live. And hopefully any squash bug eggs that hatch won't be able to find their way back to my garden. Now I know that I probably didn't get all the squash bugs this time, so unfortunately the squash bug picking is something that's going to have to happen about every day for a few days until I feel pretty confident that I've gotten as many of them as possible. I mean, it might even be a thing that I keep doing until the end of squash bug season, whenever that is, because all bugs have a life cycle, right? Like they're gonna come lay their eggs during a certain part of the year, and then they die off at a certain part of the year. And I haven't done the research, but I'm hoping that squash bugs die before frost. We'll see. I do need to look that up. But yeah, so my next step right now is to get rid of all of those branches and then plant some new cucumbers, and maybe we'll have cucumbers. Alright, so the two varieties of cucumber that I'm putting back in, one of them is a pickling cucumber. I guess both of them are pickling cucumbers, but this one is going to be smaller. I mean, I think technically with cucumbers you can pick them at whatever size you want, but these ones maybe have a larger final size, or maybe still more tender at a larger size. So I'm just gonna plant them both, and chances are good I won't be able to tell the difference once they're planted. So that's fine. I'll try and remember which side I put them on. But yeah, let's go plant some cucumbers. So some helpful information for you. I just went to water in my cucumber seeds and all of the squash bugs came out. Apparently that is the trick, is to use water and they just come crawling out of wherever they are onto the leaves, where it's so much easier to pick them off. I must have spent just like another 20 minutes picking squash bugs off, and I think I got like double what I got in my first pass. So there's a tip for you. And if you were watching that video wondering why is she only wearing one glove, that is because I very nearly cut the tip of my finger off, and the tip of my fingernail is held on with super glue, and I thought I could wear a glove, and it kind of almost cracked off, so this hand can't do the glove. Alrighty, well, that is about all I think I can get done this morning. It's already 10 o'clock and the sun is going to be out in full force on this yard any minute. So next time I will show you guys what I'm doing with seed starting for the fall. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me as I squished the squash bugs. And I hope to see you guys back next time. Happy gardening!